Howdy everyone. You can see that I've got the console back in place, and of course this is just temporary. I just wanted to verify that it would fit nicely with the fuel pump and now with the manual trim installed. So like I had said in the earlier video clip, that I had put some wow, I can't think again. I had put tie wraps on that because of the way that it bends around. There's a lot of tension on the wood faceplate if I solely relied on the 4 screws to hold it in place. So I put the tie wraps on to relieve that tension, and then it was just a matter of putting this in place, sliding the unit up into place, and then putting the 4 screws onto this faceplate to hold it in place. So that's all I've done. Nothing has been wired. I don't have my lights wired. I don't have this USB charge wired. Obviously, there's a piece missing here. That's going to have to be dealt with. But the trim knob does fit nicely, and it works smoothly. You can see that's all fine and dandy. So like I said, this is temporary. This is going to have to come back out. So I'm not going to do anything else with this at the moment. I still need a piece of fuel line to go from the boost pump over to the firewall fitting, which is behind this access cover. I don't have that fuel line, so I can't do that. So what I've started to work on now is, there's the Beagle. So I've got my, wow, like I said, I just can't think today. I've got my ELT now mounted, and I'm getting ready to run the wires for that. So I had to go ahead and remove this tunnel cover, and I've had to remove this cover, which incorporates the latching mechanism for the manual flap. So I've got all that out. I'm going to go ahead and figure out where I'm going to run these wires. There's this bundle. There's going to be another bundle for this connection here, which is going to be a GPS connection. And then I've got the antenna cable to run. But I'm thinking of running the majority of these wires down through the tunnel. And I'm thinking about potentially mounting the antenna to this plate and having it bend around this bulkhead. So the antenna line will plug in from underneath and run down through here somehow. I'm not there yet, but I did get the ELT mounted. I did test it. It works. And like I said, I'll just run my wires through the tunnel area, and I'll probably run them through the console and then out the back of the console and then up and into the instrument panel. So that's the next task that I'll be working on, and I will talk to you guys later. Howdy everyone. Let's get caught up a little bit on what I've accomplished so far. It's been a few days. I don't exactly recall what I had talked about last, so some of this might be a little bit of a review. So going forward, you can see I've got the bottom cleaned out. I've got my boost pump, and the tray that it sits on is now removed. I've got the manual trim lever figured out and installed, and I've got my fuel valve temporarily installed. The wire bundle that you see, that's the wire harness from the elevator autopilot servo. Let's see. I've got this basically a phone line here. I'll talk about that in a second. I had removed the floorboards here, this forward floor area removed, and I've got all of the covers from the tunnel area removed, and that's just so I could run my cables and my elevator trim and things like that through here. I went ahead and screwed these plates here, this cover here, this is removable so you can pull the control column out if you need to. I went ahead and attached these on the far ends, but you can see the two middle ones are left open just so I can get my hand in here if I need to while I'm running cable. In the back, actually let me switch sides. So here, more toward the rear, behind the baggage compartment, this is where I've decided to put the ELT. I guess that makes the most sense, everything considered. So that is now mounted. I've got the cable here. This is the phone line that I was just talking about. This is the cable that ultimately will plug into the ELT. This is for the remote control head, if you want to call it that, that gets mounted on the control panel. This is just a signaling wire for it. This is the wire that runs through the tunnel that I had showed you a second ago that's just loosely hanging up front. This is all preliminary stuff. I'm just running stuff through the tunnel. I may pull it back out. I've got a long length of this cable. I may actually cut this shorter. I've got a bunch of other stuff that ultimately will need to be run through here. So nothing is getting secured at the moment. I'm just laying the wires in there to check for lengths and make sure that I've got room through the grommets to fit everything. So the ELT is in place. I'm working on the wiring for it. I need to run the wires here. This connector has another mating connector that you add wires to, and that will ultimately communicate with your GPS to give GPS coordinates in case of an activation of the ELT. Those wires are also going to be run through here, but I don't have the cable for that. It's 3-conductor shielded cable, which I do not have, so I can't do anything with that. I've also mounted my antenna. This is just temporary. It's basically just here since I finally figured out how to or where to locate the hole. So I just have it thrown in here temporarily to make sure that everything fits. You can see it's kind of nestled between these two rivets, which fits nicely. And if you can imagine, these two holes here represent where basically the roll bar is going to go, the roll bar that comes out and across and goes over to the other side. That's the roll bar that the canopy ultimately comes down and closes with. So this is going to be, I can rotate this, I can swivel this antenna around, and I can get it angled however I want to angle it. And then the rest of the whip will actually be bent around and attached to the back side of that roll bar. From this bulkhead over to this roll bar area, this is all open plexiglass. So the antenna should be able to transmit through there no problem between this plexiglass and the plexiglass canopy. Anyway, that's where I'm put the antenna, so I have to run coax cable from underneath here, probably around the side, down and over to the ELT. I don't have the cable for that. I do have a cable that came with the ELT and the antenna, but it's a little short. I could make use of it, but it's a heavier, lower quality RG. I believe it's 58, which, I don't have the cable out. I put it away. But the cable that came with that antenna for the ELT, I'm not going to use. I'm going to make my own RG 400 cable. So, and I don't have that. So my work through the tunnel at this point is basically stopped because I don't have the cabling that I need and the wires that I need to continue. So I am moving on to the NACA vents. I've got the actual inlet part here. And the only thing that I've done with these is I cleaned up the edges. There is a decent amount of flashing around the edges. I've cleaned that up, and there is a little bit of an internal edge around here, and I've cleaned that up. That's all I've done with those. The other thing that I've done is I've got some blue paper. You can use any color. I've got it taped to the back side, and then I used a piece of wood just as a backer. Put the wood behind it to press it, just to press it and hold the paper tight against the skin of the airplane. While I held it tight against the skin, I used a marker and I traced out this shape onto the paper. So now what I'll do is I'll take that paper template, I'll lay it on here so I can get this exactly lined up with that shape. At that point, I'm going to drill just two, I believe. I think I'm going to put 2 holes in the skin, transfer those 2 holes to the inlet, making sure that that template on here lines up perfectly with the hole in the skin, and then I'll transfer the holes onto this. And then at that point I can put my fuel tank sealant on here, and I can put this on the plane, and those 2 holes can be clecoed, and that will perfectly align this with the opening in the skin. Then I can let the sealant cure, and then I can put my rivets through it. So I'll explain that better when I get to it. But that's where I am now. I have not ordered any cable. I don't know when I'll order cable, unfortunately. So I don't know when I'll get back to wiring. But for now, I'm going to do some vent work. After that, I'm not really sure. But I'll get there when I get there. All right. Talk to you guys later.